Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that might shake your soul, but will set your spirit free. If you're walking alone, crying alone, praying alone, wondering why nobody gets you, it might be because you're not one of many, you're one of a kind. See, they told you that loneliness meant something was wrong with you. But what if it means something's right with you? What if the silence in your life is the sound of elevation? What if isolation is the place where your crown is forged, not in noise, not in company, but in solitude? Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you'll understand why your path had to be lonely, why they left, why it hurts, and why it's all for you, not against you. You're not abandoned, you're assigned. You ever wonder why the path you're walking feels so empty? Why you wake up some days and feel like nobody really sees you, like your heart's screaming but the world's too loud to hear it? That's not a mistake. That's not coincidence. That's not punishment. That's a sign, a signal, a divine marker that says you've been chosen for something different, something greater, something rare. When a woman is selected, when life, purpose, and destiny put a mark on her, she doesn't get to blend in. She doesn't get to move with the crowd. The ones who are chosen don't walk in packs. They walk through the fire alone. They walk through the wilderness with no map, because the path they're walking hasn't been walked before. It's not familiar, it's not popular, and it's not easy. Most people want to be accepted. They want to be surrounded. They want applause, approval, support. But when you're selected, support doesn't always show up in the form of people. It shows up in the form of pressure, in solitude, in silence, in moments where you ask yourself, why me? And the answer, even when it doesn't come out loud, whispers through every moment of your pain because you were built for it. Isolation is not rejection, it's refinement. It's sacred separation. It's life's way of stripping away the noise, the distractions, the people who were never meant to go where you're going. It hurts, I know it does. It stings when friends disappear, when family doesn't understand, when the room gets quiet and your phone stops ringing. But I need you to hear me when I say this, that silence is not a void, it's a classroom. It's where God's favorite women learn to listen, to discern, to grow, to transform. You're not being ignored, you're being instructed. You're being trained in the shadows because when your time comes, when a light finally hits your life, you won't just shine. You'll glow with wisdom, with strength, with power that was earned, not handed to you. People ask, why do the strongest women always seem to be the loneliest? It's because they carry more, they're entrusted with more. And before you can lead, before you can influence, before you can pour into others, you have to be emptied. You have to be alone with your thoughts, your fears, your past, your truth. You have to sit in your own silence and face the version of you that no one else sees. And I'm going to tell you something hard but necessary. Not everyone can walk with a woman who's favored, because favor attracts friction. When you carry something divine inside you, it intimidates the ones still trying to find theirs. When you walk with calling, with clarity, you become a mirror. People either admire your strength or they resent it. And most times, they walk away from what they can't understand. That's why you're alone. That's why your phone's dry. That's why your circle shrinks. You've been chosen. And being chosen means you don't get to fit in. You don't get to settle. You don't get to water yourself down just to keep company. No, you walk alone. And in that walk, you become everything you were meant to be. The fire doesn't break you, it builds you. The silence doesn't kill you, it sharpens you. You got to stop thinking that something's wrong with you because people left. They didn't leave you, they left the assignment. They weren't meant to understand your vision. They weren't strong enough to handle your growth. Let them go. Let the crowd thin out. Because when the noise dies down, you'll finally hear your calling loud and clear. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a masterpiece being created in a stadium full of people? No, it happens in a quiet room. With focus, with isolation, with time. And that's you. You're being sculpted in secret, molded in solitude, shaped in silence. Why? Because when you step into the world, they won't just see a woman. They'll see a force, a product of patience, a reflection of purpose. You weren't meant to live a small life. That's why small company feels uncomfortable. That's why temporary friendships feel fake. You weren't built for the shallow end. You were built for the deep. And the deep requires space. Depth requires silence. Power requires process. And all of that starts with isolation. So don't despise the lonely season. Don't rush through it. Don't numb it, avoid it, or curse it. Learn from it, sit in it, own it, because when this season is over, and it will end, you won't just be walking into your next chapter. You'll be walking into it with power, with clarity, and with a story that nobody can take from you. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are being selected. And sometimes when life chooses you, it chooses to separate you. Walk tall, walk strong, walk alone if you have to, but never forget you were chosen, and that changes everything. Everybody wants favor until they realize what it comes with. People pray for elevation, but they don't ask for the friction that follows it. They want the spotlight, but they don't want the heat. They want to be chosen, but they don't want to be challenged. Favor sounds beautiful in public, but it feels like pressure in private. And that's the truth most people don't want to hear. But you felt it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When favor falls on a woman, it doesn't just bring blessings. It brings a battle. It doesn't just open doors. It exposes enemies. It doesn't just lift her. It reveals who was holding her down. And that friction, that resistance, that sudden shift where people start acting different, distancing themselves, questioning you, judging you, that's not failure. That's the weight of favor. Favor changes everything around you because it first changes everything within you. You stop being who you used to be. You start seeing things differently. Your standards shift. Your spirit sharpens. Your tolerance for foolishness decreases. You begin to crave peace over popularity, purpose over approval. And the moment that transformation begins, friction enters the picture. Why? Because the people around you start feeling the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And not everyone is built to grow with you. You ever wonder why certain people started treating you differently after you leveled up just a little? It wasn't because you changed for the worse. It's because you grew past their comfort zone. They liked you better when you were unsure of yourself, when you were doubting your worth, when you played small so they could feel big. But favor doesn't let you stay small. It pulls you out of your old patterns, your old habits, your old relationships, and into something greater. And greater always comes with resistance. The friction isn't just external, it's internal too. Favor forces you to confront your fears, your traumas, your insecurities. You begin wrestling with your calling, your timing, your faith. There are days when you don't feel like the one who's favored. You feel forgotten, you feel overwhelmed, you feel underqualified. But that's what favor does. It stretches you, it grows you, it shakes you out of comfort and into purpose. The moment life places favor on a woman, the pressure increases. You're held to a different standard. What others get away with, you can't. What others celebrate, you question. While they're busy chasing clout, you're carrying a cross. While they're comfortable, you're called. And with calling comes sacrifice. You're not misunderstood because you're difficult. You're misunderstood because you're different. You weren't meant to blend in. That uneasiness in your soul, that restlessness in your spirit, it's not because you're broken, it's because favor won't let you settle. And people don't always like that. They won't always support it. You'll lose some relationships, miss some invites, face some silent rejection, but don't let that shake you. That's just the friction that comes with the favor. They'll question your path because it doesn't make sense to them. They'll doubt your decisions because they can't see the vision. They'll talk about you, not because you've done something wrong, but because your favor reminds them of everything they've yet to face in themselves. Your growth shines a light on their stagnation. Your confidence exposes their fear. Your discipline highlights their distraction, and that's uncomfortable. But let me tell you something. Favor is never quiet for long. It may start in the dark, but it shows up in the results. You keep walking. You keep moving. Let the friction do its job. Because friction builds strength. Diamonds are made under pressure. Warriors are trained in battle. And women of favor, they're molded in resistance. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under pressure because you're powerful. The heat you're feeling isn't meant to burn you. It's meant to refine you. It's meant to prepare you for the stage you're about to step on, the people you're about to influence, the legacy you're about to leave. So if the tension is rising in your life right now, if the path is lonely, the road is rough, and the crowd is thinning, take a breath. Don't break. Don't panic. Don't retreat. Understand this. The friction is proof that you're favored. It's not punishment, it's process. It's not the end, it's the evidence that something powerful is on the way. And when that moment arrives, when the favor on your life turns into fruit, they'll wonder how you did it. But you'll know you endured the pressure. You embraced the friction. You didn't run from it. You walked through it. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need the crowd to clap. Just keep your heart steady, your faith strong, and your spirit grounded. Because favor might bring friction, but it also brings fulfillment. And when it's all said and done, you'll realize everything you went through was necessary. Every tear, every trial, every lonely night. It was all part of the process to become the woman you were always meant to be. Sometimes the silence in your life isn't punishment, it's preparation. That season where your phone stopped ringing, where people stopped checking in, where you looked around and saw nothing but space, that wasn't abandonment, that was alignment. Because when a woman is truly called, when she's marked for something greater, she often finds herself alone. Not because she's unworthy, but because what's coming next requires a version of her that can't be distracted. You ever notice how life gets real quiet right before it shifts? That's not a coincidence. That's divine design. Because transformation doesn't happen in a crowd. Breakthrough doesn't happen in chaos. Growth doesn't happen when you're surrounded by noise. It happens in isolation. It happens when there's nobody to validate you, when the applause stops, when the masks fall, and all you've got left is the mirror. That's where the work begins. That's where the truth rises. That's where the strongest women are built. We've been taught to fear loneliness, to treat solitude like a problem. But the most powerful women you've ever seen, the ones who carry that unshakable peace, that sharp intuition, that quiet fire, they were formed in solitude. Their clarity came from the quiet. Their strength came from the stillness. Because when you're alone, you start to see what really matters. You start to separate the real from the fake, the necessary from the noise, the purposeful from the pointless. That isolation you're feeling, it's not to break you, it's to strip away everything that no longer fits where you're going. The friendships that were draining you, the environments that were dulling your light, the habits that were keeping you stuck. Life removes them not to hurt you, but to heal you, to make room for what's real. Because a woman who's favored can't be overloaded with people who can't carry her vision. Preparation is personal. What you're building, what you're becoming, it's sacred. And sacred things don't happen in public. They happen behind the scenes, in the shadows, in the quiet grind that no one else sees. That's where character is forged. That's where self-respect is built. That's where resilience becomes your foundation. So don't curse the quiet. Don't rush out of the stillness. Embrace it. Let it shape you. A lot of people want the crown but not the cave. But it's in the cave that you get tested. It's in the cave that you confront who you've been pretending to be. It's in the cave where your excuses die and your purpose is born. Isolation is the training ground. It's the gym for your soul. It's where your spirit gets its weight up, so when you step back into the world, you don't just show up, you stand out. You move different, you see through things, you don't beg for a seat at the table, you build your own. You're not crazy for outgrowing conversations. You're not cold for cutting off comfort. You're not arrogant for wanting peace over people. That's growth. That's wisdom. That's preparation. And guess what? It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it feels like nothing's happening. But deep down, something is happening. You're being positioned. You're being strengthened. You're being taught how to walk alone so you'll never be controlled by the crowd again. People will look at your silence and assume you've fallen off. Let them. Because while they're watching your absence, you're preparing for your arrival. And when that moment comes, when the preparation turns into power, they'll wonder how you did it. But you'll know. You were built in the silence. You were sharpened in the shadows. You were molded in the isolation. Don't let the world convince you that being alone means you're behind. No, being alone means you're ahead. Because while they're out there trying to be seen, you're becoming solid. And solid is rare. Solid is priceless. Solid doesn't fold when things get tough. Solid stands tall when storms hit. That kind of strength only comes from time alone. So if you're in that season right now, if your circle got smaller, if your nights got quieter, if your path feels narrow, don't panic. That's not rejection. That's redirection. That's your preparation. That's your reset. Life is carving out everything you don't need so it can deliver everything you do. Keep walking, even if it's alone. Keep believing, even if no one claps. Keep building, even if no one sees it. Because one day, all that preparation will make sense. And you look back and realize you needed that silence. You needed that space. You needed that time away from everybody else to finally hear your own voice. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break through. And sometimes the only way to do that is to walk alone. Everybody who starts with you won't finish with you. And that's not something to cry about. That's something to understand. Because when you're walking in purpose, when you're being elevated to something higher, not everyone can breathe at that altitude. You're not being abandoned. You're being separated. Because not all company is good company. And not all closeness means connection. There comes a point in a woman's life, especially one who's chosen, one who's favored, where she starts losing people she thought would be there forever. Friends you laughed with, family you trusted, people you broke bread with. Slowly they fade. They act different. They distance themselves. Or they do something that forces your hand. And it stings. It confuses you. But deep down, you know, they were never meant to walk the entire path with you. Purpose has a cost, and part of that cost is separation. You can't take everyone with you where you're going. Some people are tied to the chapter, not the story. Some were just there to wake you up, not walk with you. Their role was temporary. And if you try to force temporary people into permanent positions, you're going to keep experiencing disappointment. Some folks were only in your life to teach you a lesson. And once the lesson is learned, the relationship ends. That's not failure. That's growth. The people you love the most can't handle who you're becoming. They fell in love with the old version of you. The version that was unsure, always available, easily influenced, and willing to play small just to keep them comfortable. But now you're rising. Now you're moving in clarity. Now your standards are different. Your energy's sharper. Your peace is louder. And the moment you stop being who they want you to be, you become a problem. That's how you know it's time to walk alone. Don't beg anyone to stay. Don't shrink to fit their comfort zone. Don't chase after folks who were never assigned to your destiny. You're not here to drag people along. You're here to walk your own road, even if it means walking it alone. Because the truth is, you don't need an audience to be anointed. You don't need a crowd to be called. Sometimes being misunderstood is the greatest sign that you're on the right path. Because elevation creates separation every single time. People will start to say, "You've changed." And they're right. You have. You're not that same woman who tolerated disrespect, who explained herself over and over, who played small just to make others feel big. No, you've evolved. And growth offends people who refuse to grow. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them walk away. That's not your burden anymore. Here's the truth. If they could leave you, they were never for you. Loyalty isn't tested when everything's easy. It's tested when you start honoring yourself, when you stop answering the calls, when you stop justifying your boundaries. That's when the real ones rise and the fake ones fall off. And when they fall off, don't chase them. Thank them, because their absence is making space for the ones who can walk with you, the ones who see your growth and clap for it, who see your shine and respect it, who don't feel threatened by your evolution. They feel inspired by it. Listen, when the wrong people walk out, the right things start to walk in. But you can't receive what's meant for you while clinging to what's expired. Some chapters have to close before new ones begin. You can't carry dead weight and expect to soar. Let it go, let them go. You're not losing people, you're finding yourself. And that's a trade worth making every single time. You're going to have days where it gets lonely, where you wonder if walking away was the right move, where you question whether solitude is really strength. But let me remind you, peace is the real evidence of progress. And if you feel lighter without them, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. That's how you know you did the right thing. Sometimes the greatest blessing isn't who walks in your life, it's who walks out. Don't carry guilt for choosing you, for protecting your peace, for honoring your journey. The people meant for you will never require you to break yourself just to keep them close. They'll walk with you because they're built for it, because they understand your vision, because they speak your language. Until then, keep walking, even if it's quiet, even if it's solo, even if nobody claps. Because one day, you'll look back and realize those who left didn't break you. They made room for your breakthrough. When you're chosen for something greater, you don't get to live like everybody else. You don't get to move the same, talk the same, think the same. You feel it, don't you? That weight in your chest, that pull in your spirit, that quiet pressure that never leaves. That's not stress. That's responsibility. That's what it feels like to carry a calling, and it's heavy. Not everybody can carry it That's why you've been set apart. That's why your path feels different. Because what's on your life demands discipline. Being favored isn't always about favor. It's about function. You've been given something that has to be protected. Something that can't be watered down, diluted, or wasted. And because of that, you'll go through more. You'll be tested harder. You'll cry deeper. You'll wrestle longer. Because pressure produces power. And the greater the calling, the greater the crushing. The strength you see in women who walk in purpose, that didn't come cheap. That was paid for it in tears, in late nights, in lonely seasons, in unanswered prayers. You probably asked, why me? Why does it feel like I carry more than I should? Why does it feel like no one understands me? Why do I keep getting hit and still have to stand? But that's the cost of being called. You don't get to walk light when you're destined to move mountains. You don't get to play small when you're assigned to shift atmospheres. That ache you feel, that's legacy sitting on your shoulder, and you were built for it. People see the outside, your strength, your poise, your courage, but they don't see the private weight. The nights you held it together when you wanted to fall apart. The times you smiled when you were breaking. The moments you chose to forgive when everything in you wanted to walk away. That's the burden of being chosen. It's walking with grace while carrying grief. It's standing tall when your knees are shaking. It's leading others while no one's checking on you. And you do it not for applause, not for validation, but because you know deep down you were made for more. You don't get to escape the refining process. You don't get to skip the fire, because fire doesn't destroy what's real, it reveals it. And every trial, every disappointment, every betrayal was not to take you out, but to take you deeper. To teach you how to walk when no one's holding your hand. To teach you how to trust yourself when the noise gets loud. To build a foundation in you that won't break when life shakes. That's what the weight is doing. It's preparing you to carry what others can't. You ever notice how people admire strong women until they realize what it took to get that strong? They want your light, but not your fight. They love your glow, but not your growth. But you know the truth. You know that strength doesn't come from easy days. It comes from being pressed and still not cracking. From being left behind and still choosing to move forward. From being underestimated and still delivering excellence. That's the difference. You don't need recognition to be great. You just need alignment, and that alignment comes from understanding that the weight you carry is not punishment, it's purpose. Sometimes that weight feels unfair, like you're doing everything right and still being tested, still being overlooked, still being stretched. But purpose doesn't care about comfort. It cares about capacity. And the more you grow, the more you're required to carry. Not to break you, but to build you. Because you're not just carrying your own story. You're carrying generations. You're carrying healing. You're carrying truth. You're carrying freedom. There will be days where the weight feels too heavy. Days where you feel forgotten. Days where you ask, who's there for me? But even in those moments, something in you keeps going. That's the mark of the called. You may bend, but you don't break. You may pause, but you don't quit. Because something in your spirit knows. What you're building is bigger than how you feel. And when the time is right, what's been heavy will become holy. What's been painful will become powerful. What's been silent will speak for itself. So don't resent the weight. Don't curse the calling. Don't envy the ones who seem to have it easier. Because easy doesn't build endurance. Comfortable doesn't birth clarity. And shallow doesn't change lives. You were born for something deeper, something heavier, something greater. And yes, it gets lonely. Yes, it gets exhausting. But when you finally step into what you were made for, it all makes sense. Every tear, every loss, every night you had to carry yourself, you weren't meant to run from the weight. You were meant to rise under it. Because what's inside you is stronger than what's against you. And when the world sees your strength, they won't know the half of it, but you'll know. You carried the weight and you didn't fold. She's not cold. She's not distant. She's not arrogant. She's guarded. There's a difference. See, when a woman has been broken in places you can't see, when she's been betrayed by the very people who claim to love her, when she's been left to pick up her own pieces more times than she can count, she learns something. Not everyone deserves access to her. Not everyone earns the right to sit at her table. In that lesson, that's what makes her different. It's easy to misunderstand a woman who's learned how to protect her peace. People will call her too much or too hard or too quiet. But the truth is, she's just tired. Tired of giving her energy to people who only took. Tired of explaining herself to those who never listened. Tired of watering others while she withered. So now, she moves differently. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't entertain chaos. Not because she's angry, but because she's aware. You don't get to see her soul just because you're curious. She's not putting her heart on display for anyone who smiles nice, because she's learned that charm can be fake and words can be empty. What she values now is presence, intention, consistency. She watches patterns, not promises. She listens more than she speaks, because experience has taught her who you are when no one's looking is who you really are. And she's not building connections off potential anymore. She's watching fruit, not just flowers. This kind of woman, she's rare. She walks into a room and doesn't need to announce herself. Her energy does that for her. She's not loud, but she's heard. She's not flashy, but she shines. She doesn't try to fit in because she knows she was never meant to. And when people don't understand her silence, her solitude, her strength, that's okay. She's not here to be understood by the masses. She's here to be respected by the few who get it. But don't mistake her boundaries for walls. Don't think just because she's guarded, she doesn't feel deeply. She does. She feels everything. That's why she's careful now. That's why she doesn't rush into friendships or relationships. That's why she takes time before opening up, because when she gives all. Her time, her loyalty, her heart. And once you've had to rebuild yourself from the ground up, you don't risk that kind of giving lightly. She knows her worth now. That's what scares some people. They can't manipulate her anymore. They can't guilt her into staying. They can't confuse her with mixed signals. She's seen too much, she's grown too much, she's healed too much, and now that she knows what peace feels like, she won't settle for anything that threatens it. She'd rather sit alone in her silence than sit next to someone who makes her feel invisible. The world teaches women to be soft, agreeable, available, but life teaches them to be discerning, to listen to that still small voice inside, to trust their intuition, even when it doesn't make sense. And that's what she does now. She doesn't ignore red flags anymore. She doesn't override her gut just to keep the peace. She's not interested in pleasing people who wouldn't bleed for her. Her loyalty is earned, not assumed. Her love is a privilege, not a guarantee. She's become the kind of woman who doesn't flinch at silence, who finds strength in solitude, who knows how to hold herself down when no one else shows up. And that kind of woman, she's powerful because she's not afraid of being alone. She's afraid of being drained. She's not running from connection. She's just not desperate for it. She's content in her own presence. And that scares people who depend on validation. People will try to figure her out, pick her apart, get close enough to take from her. but she's no longer easy to access. Not because she's mean, but because she finally understands what's at stake. Her peace, her power, her purpose. They matter. She spent